On this episode of On Tap, from garden to growler, 56 Brewing is growing to a full tap room.
And a local family farm has grown Minnesota's largest hop producer.
Plus, Excelsior Brewing Company offers a lively tap room with a casual feel. Welcome to another episode of On Tap. I'm Ben Hale, sitting with Danica Peterson in beautiful Excelsior, Minnesota on a nice fall day. We're here at Excelsior Brewing, and we're drinking a couple of their flagship beers. I've got their IPA here.
And I've got their pale ale, and it is quite tasty.
We've got another great episode of On Tap for you today.
Yeah, and we're going to start it off in Northeast Minneapolis at 56 Brewing, a small brewery doing big things.
So I'm a math science guy, so I see 56 everywhere. So 5.6% ABV, 56 SRM, which is the color, 7 times 8, 14 times 4, 38 hexadecimal. It's all 56. Joe DiMaggio's home running streak. So the list goes on and on. I think the true answer is 56 it's been my number. I think early in, I think it was 6th grade, somebody came up and says, Cale, pick your favorite number, it's gotta be 7 or 14. And I'm like, no, like it's 56. Just out of the blue, I did that. And I think I figured out, the number stuck to me, is behind you up here is this paddle boat. And my dad built that paddle boat for us kids. And so I spent hours in that boat. And in the crank arms, there's a cast number. And there's actually a number 56 cast in there. So I think that just ingrained in my head. I don't know, it's a good number. Nick and I have been homebrewing. Nick's our lead brewer for 16 years combined. So I love everything about, homebrewing, and just my equipment got bigger and bigger, and I kept scaling up. So my wife really pushed me into doing this. She says, this is a passion of yours, why don't you put a project plan together, put some financials together, and start a business. It's a 10-barrel cold side and a 5-barrel hot side. So it's really a 5-barrel brew house. So we do double batches to produce our 10 barrels. So 2 fermenters, a bright tank, and some modified dairy equipment. It is small. It's just under 800 square feet. It works for us. Rent is really nice to us, so we like that. And it really was a nice incubator for us to start out, to get our branding out, to get our recipes out. So it really works for us.
What I always tell people is I get to make beer, drink beer, and talk about beer. So that's kind of the fun part for me. We both kind of went through our recipes we had, picked a couple that we knew other people had really enjoyed. So we started off with 4. We had the Dark Territory and the Northeast Nectar, which were 2 of Cale's recipes, and then I had our Polonaise APA and the Lake Sandy Rye Lager. And so we started with those 4, and from there have thrown in other beers. And then there's all sorts of other recipes that we're thinking about, we're gonna make. We've had some stuff in barrels. Right now we have our smoked maple porter in a Knob Creek barrel, and then our black iron porter in a Glenfiddich Scotch barrel. So those 2 will be a lot of fun when they get done and are ready to start bottling. We love the different flavors you can get off barrel aging. So even in this 800 square feet, we found space for 2 barrels, right? So it's not a lot, but each barrel is about 53 gallons. We just love to be able to put different blends in the barrel and try it out. So even one of our earliest blends was a lighter beer, our Lake Sandy Rye, that we ended up putting that in there, aging it in a rye barrel, and it's only about 7%, which is pretty low, but the flavors that come off of it, it's like a beer cognac. So you get the flavors of the oak, you get some woodiness in there. My favorite's probably our California Street IPA. That's one that myself and another one of the owners came up with one day while we were sitting here brewing. We wanted something that was, an IPA that was, full of flavor. We ended up using, starting off with a lot of Eldorado hops. I'm now using Eldorado Simcoe and a little bit of Cascade. So you get a nice like citrusy tropical fruit aroma on it. Definitely very popular summertime beer. That's usually my go-to.
I think hands down for me, I'm a American Pale Ale fanatic, so the Pale Ale is my top beer. It's 5%, so it's easy drinking. And the other thing I really like about that is we take fresh hops from the garden, and this is the time of year that we can pick those hops. We have 12 varieties out there, and we do this series called Dank Pale Ale. So we'll use the Pale Ale as the base beer and then run through different hops each weekend. So you really can flavor and showcase those different hops. We got our licensing here at the end of 2014. May of 2015, we opened the doors. So we moved in and I set my projections fairly conservative. I believe it was about 4 months in, we realized that the space is too small. So we leased a 5,000 square foot building, and we're in process of building out a full taproom, full production facility.
The nice thing is it's just a couple blocks away. So we've had a lot of our regular customers who hear we're moving, and they get all worried and like, oh, where are you going? It's like, it's 3 blocks away. You guys will still be able to find us. Yeah, getting all new equipment. It's going to be much bigger. We're on a 5-barrel hot side right now. We'll be moving into a 20-barrel. So that is really exciting. And then having the ability to serve pints and a full-size tap room is going to be really nice. It'll give us a little more creative flexibility for doing one-off beers and stuff like that. Right now we're pretty limited on space, both with our cooler and then the amount of taps we have. So doing a one-off beer is a little bit harder here. So we'll really get to let loose and make whatever we want.
So kind of our vision at 56 is, we have a slogan, garden to growler. So outside here we built an above ground garden. So we love everything that can grow, from the dirt to grow different herbs and plants, to be able to infuse our beers, put adjuncts in. So at the new place, we're gonna have this huge garden, like I said, outside of us, big parkway. So we love greenery, we love kind of those natural environments. And really our vision is this open layout, so you can really come in and see the equipment. So just like here, you walk in, you feel like you're in the brew house, which you are. At the new place, it'll be kind of the same feeling. You can see the tank, see the equipment, see us working. To just draw that interaction between customers and brewing. We can't wait for a full tap room where we can actually pour a full pint of beer.
Thanks to Cale and the entire team at 56 Brewing in Northeast. It was a great time that we had in that unique space that they have there. And when they have their big new space in not too long, next February, I think is their goal that they told us while we were there. It'll be even bigger and better to go enjoy those good beers. That dark territory, oh, money. All right.
Well, next we're going to send it out to Mighty Axe Hops, a small family farm in Ham Lake, which is becoming Minnesota's largest hop farm.
Before you drink the beer, the brewer has to make the beer. But before the brewer can brew, someone has to grow the ingredients.
I'm gonna try and find a big one, because they look better.
Ben and Eric at Mighty Axe Hops are becoming the largest hop producer in the state, just 4 years after they planted their first hop.
We got started here 4 years ago. This is my family's farm, and so this was a natural first place to start farming. I mean, we wouldn't have had access to just a 1/4 acre of land without it. And now that we have that, we're able to, that was kind of our first step to getting to where we're at now, which is trying to make it big time.
Well, I like to say we are a commercial hops production operation. We're meeting a lot of real farmers as we're getting into this, and I would hesitate to call myself a farmer yet. And the way that we run our operation is different than the way a lot of farms work. But to tell somebody that we're a commercial hops operation gets across the idea that we're serious about producing a pretty high quality and high volume of what we do.
But the journey hasn't always been easy.
The first time we grew hops, I didn't know anything about what we were supposed to be doing. So we were kind of like, you just throw these things in the ground, watch them come up, and then you start learning about all your mistakes. So they got diseases, we had sourced dirty plants from the wrong place, we under-fertilized, we underwatered. We had no idea what to expect in terms of yield or anything like that. But we picked cones off those hops.
Since that day, they've been planting more and growing more, both in volume and varieties of hops.
Here we have 2 on the production scale, and then we have 11 test varieties that are really fun. So some of those test ones come from Slovakia, some of them are more recent USDA releases. Really trying out the whole gambit.
Their big 2 are common hops.
Crystal and Cascade. Okay. Those are kind of classic American hops. Cascade is in almost all the pale ales and IPAs that you drink. Crystal is similar to Cascade.
And one of their test hops is very unique in America.
Vojvodina, that's the one from Eastern Europe, and it's kind of a wild, interesting hop that isn't really, people don't know a lot about it here, so we're fun to play with it, see what it tastes like.
Different varieties of hops look the same on the vines, but can taste very different.
Hops, as you can see behind me, they grow in these big tall trellises, like 16 to 18 feet out of the ground. It's like a vineyard, but a lot taller. They're beautiful right now, especially once they get to full maturity and they're growing they're putting out all their flowers. So they look like cones, people will call them cones, but they're technically the flower of the female plant. And if you rip that flower in half, especially now, they're starting to turn yellow and orange inside, and that's the lupulin. That's the acids and the oils that like make your beer bitter or make your beer smell good or preserve your beer. And that's really what we're growing. We're not hop farmers, we're lupulin farmers. Like the green stuff is pretty, but it's just like kind of there to look at. It doesn't do anything for your beer. It's all about that lupulin.
The flower of this plant happens to have, this is actually quite a few flowers stacked on top of each other in a structure called a strobile. And when you rip it open, you can see all of this yellow dust in here. And those are all glands that are pretty dense with a bunch of different compounds. Now the plant produces this because once this gets pollinated and it's trying to produce a seed, it wants all these chemicals in place to keep bacteria off, to keep other kinds of infections away so that it can healthily usher in the next generation of hops. It just so happens that we have the sensory coating for about 250 of these compounds in our olfactory and mouth tasting system, basically. So while this helps protect the plant, it also tastes delicious and we love it. So that's pretty much what we're doing. We're growing these things for this dust called lupulin, and so that we can extract it into beer.
Once the hops are harvested, they can either be used whole or processed into pellets for long-term storage. Then they go into beer and provide beer's unique bitter flavor.
Hops are the main ingredient in beer. Hops are what make beer bitter, they're what make beer smell good. They're actually the preservative in beer too. So all those come from hops. And without hops, you really wouldn't be that far along to having a beer. Even in the macro brews that don't use a lot of hops, there's still hops present to balance out the sweetness of the malt.
The growing market for craft beer has made it possible for Mighty Axe to make a big change. They bought 80 acres of land and are growing more hops and pelleting their own hops at a new farm in Foley.
Well, the conversation was a little bit falling into our lap, and it was the opportunity to like really grow hops for real, and we decided to take it. We wanted to grow hops for our living, really, and when I sat down and we started penciling it out, it ended up being 80 acres of hops equals paying yourself. And affording your equipment and your employees and all this stuff.
The Foley expansion is really cool because we're going from kind of the equivalent of home brewing in some ways, and maybe a very large home brewery, but we're going from farming at a small enough scale where we have to build most things ourselves, we have to kind of improvise and find homegrown solutions to our problems, and at Foley we're taking it to a scale that's big enough where we can buy equipment and gear our operation around that kind of equipment. And that's the same stuff that people in Germany and Michigan and Pacific Northwest use.
And with that, they are now the largest hop grower in the state.
And it's cool too. Minnesota's not really a place where you get a lot of specialty agriculture. Kind of the standard is corn and soybeans and maybe potatoes. And so to have that new appreciation for locally grown ingredients really opens a lot of doorways for us to try something new at a big scale that hasn't been done before here.
One of those open doors was a career that's different than Ben's first plans.
I wanted to be an organic vegetable farmer until I started learning about the average salary for an organic vegetable farmer. So I was kind of looking for something a little more lucrative to make it crass, and perhaps with a little more realistic chance of me succeeding and having a career at the other side of it. And hops kind of presented themselves as a really neat crop. I mean, it's eye-catching being a 18-foot tall plant in the first place. And then the opening and widening market for craft beer, all these things lined up and started to make sense.
And now they're making a living while doing what they love.
My favorite thing is having a plant that's as challenging as hops, where I can sit down and do research and do work and learn more and more and more about what they want, and then spend a whole 4 to 5 month window trying out everything I've learned. It's kind of a balance of improvisation and executing planned events. And you finally get to this part of the year where you've got a flower in your hand and you can really see whether or not you did it.
And even with their huge expansion, they are going to keep their few acres up in Ham Lake and keep that as an experimental hop farm, trying new things, new varieties that aren't commonly done in Minnesota, and see what happens.
And just on the day we were there, there was a couple breweries coming in to try out and see what they can do with some of the locally grown hops. Great place.
Yeah.
Well, we've been enjoying this nice patio here at Excelsior, but they are so much more than just a great patio. They're also a great place to drink some beer.
We always felt from day one that Excelsior was the town that we wanted to be in. Perfect town for a brewery.
Excelsior Brewing Company was born out of a love for Lake Minnetonka, the town of Excelsior, and good beer. From the surfboards on the walls to the names of the beers, the culture of Lake Minnetonka is infused into every aspect at Excelsior Brewing.
Excelsior is a beautiful town. I grew up over on the north side of Lake Plymouth, Wayzata area. I was actually on the fence between Wayzata and Excelsior. Excelsior seemed a little bit more exciting and kind of was where I really wanted to be. Just because it's a fabulous town, to the fact that it's a destination town. So people come here on purpose to go on a boat ride, or maybe hit the shops or the bed and breakfast in town and all the restaurants. So it just naturally was already bringing people here.
Once John and his partners committed to the idea of bringing a brewery to Excelsior, they had to find a space. The taproom and brewery today occupies a 9,000 square foot building, but that's not the story of how Excelsior started.
We only occupied about 3,000 square feet originally, and it was in the back. Right now we're sitting in the front where there's a nice retail space. I got street front and windows, but we were in the back, and all we had was a service door and a garage door, and in the back of a building that not a lot of people got to see in a parking lot. So those first years, though, are some of the most memorable because it was designed on the fly. You know, everything was new to us. I never opened a brewery before, so this was first for me. We were in a very small space, and most of it was brewery. We didn't have a bottling machine, we just had a keg machine. So on Thursdays at about 3 o'clock, we would spray down the floors, push the kegs to the side. We had some bars on wheels and some cheap rental tables, and we set those up, put the garage door open, and the tap room was open. And it was crazy. It was super raw. It was like drinking in the garage, and people really enjoyed that experience.
The brew team at Excelsior is led by Niles Lewin, who has grown into the role as head brewer by challenging himself to understand and enjoy the science behind brewing a good batch of beer.
I love the mechanics behind it. I love the fact that you can never get comfortable as a brewer. Something's always going on. My life, Monday through Friday, is crazy. I get pulled from one side to the other, so I love the fact that it's always changing. I love the artistry behind it. I love making recipes, designing recipes, making a product that people enjoy, and you know, that's really probably the favorite part of my job, is hearing from the people, you know, that they enjoy the product that we're laboring over.
When you walk into Excelsior Brewing, you will find between 12 and 16 beers on tap. The selection rotates often, but you will always find their 4 flagship beers.
Our big flagship, our best sellers, Big Island Blonde. This beer we have brewed since day one.
That particular beer is 65-ish% of our sales, and it's a great patio pounder, so the summer months when the beer drinking is heavy, we really do flow through that quite well. It's an amazing beer. It's made with a little bit of wheat, not too much, but it just gives it a nice bready feel and bready taste, and then biscuity taste, I guess, if you will, and then it has a nice citrus bite on it as well. So it's a little bit more full flavor than your typical blonde, and I think people are finding they're finding a likeness to that.
And that beer we really have kind of dialed in since day one. We really haven't messed with that recipe much. The other 3 that we have taken a progression on. the Excelsior, our American Pale Ale. When we first started brewing that beer, it was more on the malt side, so we were almost in that British Pale Ale kind of category. So, you know, when I took over the head brewer job, that was the first recipe I started tweaking, where we actually have incorporated a lot more of the American hops, where we're getting the citrus flavor, the grapefruit flavor. We started dry hopping that beer, so that's kind of, I don't want to say hop forward, but it's very well balanced because there is a nice malt backbone to that beer.
Just a fabulous American Pale Ale, probably my favorite beer that we offer. I wish American Pale Ales were a little bit more popular. IPAs seem to have trumped them, but that's my favorite beer that we offer right now. And it's just a fantastic classic American Pale Ale, all American hops, and just a really great beer. And then we have a Bitterslappa Brown Ale. Bitterslappa, German gibberish, means absolutely nothing. That beer actually came out of a necessity for, we needed a German beer for Oktoberfest, and at the time we thought our Marzen wouldn't be done on time. So 3 weeks before, the brewer at the time made a Munich-style brown ale, and it was so good, and we put it in a couple of restaurants that kept buying it, so we decided, well, let's keep it. Has nothing to do with our brand, but people love it, and we really discovered that the brown ale market, especially with Minnesota craft, hadn't been touched. So anybody had a Newcastle handle, we went after it, and people were happy to see that. So that was great. Bitterslappa Brown Ale. And then our final flagship is our Bridge Jumper IPA. It's most of our beers take on more of a European flair, which means that we focus a little bit more on the malts and the hops, and you'll find that. And in our IPA, it's no different. It's a very sweet IPA. Starts out very, very sweet. Does have a ton of hops in it that come down crashing at the end.
We use a lot of Chinook in that beer, so you get a lot of grapefruit aroma and flavor.
The sweetness washes it away to where you get a little bit almost, I don't know if there's such a thing as a balanced IPA, but this I think is extremely balanced. It's extremely sweet and extremely hoppy, and it doesn't leave you scraping the back of your tongue off at the end of the beer.
Those flagships can be found in most area liquor stores. With a busy taproom and growing distribution demand, the brewing system at Excelsior is rarely idle and continues to grow larger.
20-barrel JV&W out of Oregon, American made. We run 9 40-barrel fermenters, and then we run 2 20-barrel fermenters. And then our bright tanks, we have 3 40s and 1 20. So typically we're brewing twice to fill up a tank. Full capacity, if everything goes correctly and the tank empties and it's filled, we can run about 8,000 barrels a year with this system. This year we're looking at just over 6,000, so we aren't really full operation, but we're pretty close. My main goal as head brewer is once that tank empties, we fill it. So I mean, it's pretty rare to see an empty tank in our house, yeah. And really, I mean, with this facility, we may look into adding 2 more 40s, and that would kind of be our limit. So we could get up to about 10,000 annual barrels a year in this facility.
In addition to their large system, small batches are made on their pilot system, making Excelsior great for someone always looking to try something new. But they also feel they have a good selection for the craft beer novice.
We kind of call ourselves a little bit more easier drinking just because we focus more on those malts and they're a little bit sweeter beers. We do get a lot of people that walk in here and ask for and I think every tap room does, but you get a bunch of people that walk in and say, give me the lightest beer that you have. You know, and the first thing we do is we turn them onto our Bitterslappa Brown Ale because it's what I consider the easiest drinking. And what people are saying by lightest beers is they don't want that hop bite at the back end is typically what they're saying. So with that, that's where I always lead people into our beers is to start there, and then we try to give them the experience of craft beer. Then we go to our Blonde, then we go to the Excelsior, and then we go to the Bridge Jumper, just try to not, wreck those palates. So that's kind of how we always introduce ourselves to people.
Between the team, town, customers, and beer, Excelsior feels they have the perfect setup for anyone who walks into the tap room.
We have a great management team here, the people that just help run the business, including in addition to myself. Our brewers are fantastic. The personalities here are just amazing.
You know, the town itself is just phenomenal, whether it's family or if you're out on a date or even if you're just out with friends. I mean, we have so much going on in this town. But as far as coming to the tap room, I mean, our tap room's always been kind of, it's been a fun tap room in the sense that we always have entertainment, we always have music, we always have the games. We have a great crowd. Our tap room's never empty. We're always We always got people here.
The community and our customers. I love coming to our tap room. I love seeing the regulars. I love seeing the new people. I love seeing new beer enthusiasts. People are trying to get into it, or people are just jumping around and bragging about, I've been to 50 tap rooms, I've been doing this. And just the people, it really is. I mean, the beer is obviously the thing that makes us go, but it's really the people that drive me.
The friendships that I've seen started here, and long-term friendships where these guys are going to be friends for the rest of their lives.
What a great career. I mean, it's, again, lots of challenges out there, but I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Well, we have been enjoying this beautiful fall day out here at Excelsior Brewing Company, but really it's a great place to come any time of year. Head out to the western suburbs here and check it out.
We would like to thank Excelsior Brewing Company, Mighty Axe Hops, and 56 Brewing for sharing their stories with us this month on Tap.
And to finish today, as we always say, drink good beer and drink it responsibly. Cheers.